This video is being recorded for a 9th grade biology class, focusing on evolution at the time. We're going to go in a little bit deeper depth than what the Regents requires us to do. Okay, let's quick go through a recap of what we have covered so far. We begin by discussing Darwin and his theory of natural selection. We analyzed the discovery of the beak characteristics that distinguish the different types of finches on the Galapagos Islands. We learned that each beak has evolved over time and been selected for due to its success in the environment. We're looking at this picture and we're seeing the different beaks that go with the different types of food and what they are best used for. The better adapted the species is, the more opportunity the species has to mate to pass on their genetics to their offspring. We also have looked at phylogenetic trees and linked the trees to DNA differences and specific characteristics. Remember that each fork of the branch, where they connect, they share a common ancestor. Okay, so these forks are what I'm talking about here, and that is showing the common ancestors. Phylogenetics, just to remember, it is just showing the evolutionary relationship between them by a common ancestor. The branching patterns show divergence of the organisms, and over time they develop into a new species. We've completed several labs looking at the amino acid and DNA patterns, hypothesizing using sequence evidence, and determining how the linkage between apes and chimpanzees fall in the phylogenetic tree with humans. We've done this already. We've also determined that we share a common ancestor with chimpanzees and apes, not that we have originated from them. As a class, we also looked at and defined what homologous, analogous, and vestigial structures are. In this picture, we are looking at analogous structures such as the flippers or the fins, and they serve as the same type of concept to propel the species forward, but they all have different structures inside. Homologous structures mean that they look and appear differently, but structurally they have the same type of makeup, the same type of structure, just put together in a slightly different way. And vestigial structures we watched a video about, and we seen how, for one example, in our bodies, the palmaris longus is a tendon that's in our arm that we would think would be used for grip strength, but we do not actually need it for our grip strength anymore. So some of us are born with them in both arms, with one in one arm, and some of us do not have that. It's one of the first tendons that are removed to help us with reconstructive surgeries. The discovery of the common ancestor that we have found, sorry guys, back it up. So this is just another phylogenetic tree of the chimpanzees to Homo sapiens today. So today's focus is the physical changes in the structure of the body that aid in the modern human to evolve from bipedal ancestors. And what we need to do first is we need to be able to define what bipedal means. And bipedal means that it's a major type of locomotion involving the movement of 2 feet. It's usually a terrestrial movement, so not in aquatic areas like our lovely fish in our room, and using them as their rear limbs or legs to run, jump, and hop. So we are not knuckle draggers, as what they like to call it. Okay, so the ancestor that we share is called the Australopithecus africanus, and this was scientists have come to find that they are possibly one of the first ancestors that have originated to be bipedal. The discovery of this common ancestor was actually a child, a 3-year-old child, and they named it Tong Australopithecus africanus. and it was discovered in 1924. The species shows that there is a development of the brain expansion and bipedal changes through the fossil records. We're going to look at that a little bit better. We're also going to look at the evidence through a Darwinian approach. So we're looking at just their physical changes through the fossil record. We're not going deep into the DNA today. Okay? And Tong had an ape-like brain size, but he had more of an upright posture, which is more like the human-like detention. And the first thing that they proposed was the cerebral rubicum increased intelligence, which helps us to define humans from our other ancestors. We're a very intelligent species, and we are thinking that we have found that through this ancestor. And Tong was discovered in the savanna, which is a type of biome that we have gone over before with very little trees, and that is the picture on the right here. We know that most of the species before, such as apes and gorillas and chimpanzees, are in more of the type of forests, especially in Africa, and that is mainly what we think of. But our bipedal ancestors, due to migration patterns, moved out and into the savannas. We're going to now look at some more physical evidence and changes with those characteristics. The first one that we're going to look at is the teeth themselves. Australopithecus was seen to have seen shorter canines and a thinner enamel on the teeth, demonstrating a shift in their diet. They were now able to eat a variety of foods. This was due to the type of food that was available to them. So if they didn't have such hard types of foods and they had more vegetation, they didn't need their canines as much as they used to. The shape of the mouth also changed due to their different dietary needs. The structure of the skull and face also shows differences. From the narrowing of the nasal passages, they became narrow and longer, unlike a relative, the ape, that has a short, broad nasal passage. Another change in the skeleton is the position of the bones. Over time, we have developed the ability to run and throw upright in a bipedal stance. We developed this horizontal spine that is narrower than a chimp and an ape. The Australopithecus had this as well. Over time, we have developed the ability to run and sprint. The skeleton of the human body had to evolve to do so. The skeleton changed for energetics, strength, and stabilization. So this slide is showing you about energetics, and the human body has developed long spring-like tendons in the legs to generate force. These tendons attach to the foot, and in return the human foot has developed an arch. So we see there is a very different muscular structure and more stretched out into the human leg versus the chimpanzee leg or ape leg on the left. This is just showing you the arch of the foot. Okay, so our arch of our foot developed that our common ancestors do not have. This helps us to maintain a mid-dorsal rigidity along with the absorption of the shock of walking and running. So the walking and running on the ground is very harsh, and it actually is a lot of force for your body. This is a picture showing the ability for someone to walk compared to a chimpanzee trying to walk in a normal pace. The bones also have become stronger to endure the shock of running. The more the foot collides with the ground, the more stress on the bones. This evolves over time after it became bipedal. Stabilization to be able to stand upright is very important. Over time, the body has changed to evolved to have more defined muscles that gave more structural support to protect the spine. Between lengthening and strengthening and changing the shape in slightly different position allowed the body to lengthen and be able to walk and run. So this picture is showing you the difference between a chimpanzee the tang and the human body. And we're seeing that the narrowing of this stance, which is allowing us to have our balance, where chimpanzees more have a sway. So the narrower that we are starting to walk and the more curved that our hips are, allows us to be able to walk and keep our balance better. So that helps with stabilization. This is the image of the contrast of the muscle strength and strengthening of the back to help with our spinal column and be able to stabilize us as we walk and stand upright. We have a much better, straighter posture than the chimpanzee, who is very curved. We can even see this through the position of the higher waist and longer legs on the Australopithecus. Now, it is very important to note that the chimpanzees are the closest living relative. Emphasis on living. We've evolved from a common ancestor that chimps and humans diverged from. The most common bipedal ancestors found by fossil record is the Australopithecus africana. Thank you for your time.